The Toons we know from Dandy's world might see their Toon handlers as parental figures, but what if each of them had a family of their own? What would their parents look like? What kind of personalities would they have? And just how similar would they be to the Toons we already know? In this tape, we'll be riding through different floors of the elevator, and on each one, we'll discover a different category of Toons. We'll meet their families, see how they interact with one another, and find out which ones seem to be the most functional and which ones probably can't stand being in the same room together. All of these designs were created by Blue Bevy and shared on Reddit. And at the end of each floor, I'll be choosing my favorite family. So let's begin. Main Toons. Dandy. Dandy's parents are Kulumian and Daisy. Kulumian is a cloud with a rainbow that forms a sort of ponytail behind his head. He wears a colorful vest, a black shirt, and an elegant red bow tie. Even though his design is quite eye-catching, he gives off a calm personality and seems like the kind of Toon who rarely loses his patience. On the other hand, we have Daisy, a flower with white petals, accented by shades of yellow and green. Her expression reflects a gentle and caring attitude, making her the perfect complement to Kulumian. It's not hard to imagine where Dandy inherited his personality from. Both parents radiate positive energy and seem to have a very stable relationship. They are currently happily married. Dial. Dial's parents are Horolian and Basil. Horolian is a massive clock inspired by the ones commonly found in train stations. That could explain where Dial's connection to clocks and trains come from. His husband, Basil, is a classic grandfather clock. Just like Dial, he features vibrant colors on the hour markers and on the pendulum itself, helping visually tie the entire family together. Unlike some of the other couples, both of them project a very strict and formal image. They don't seem particularly expressive, but they do appear highly disciplined. Looking at them together, it's easy to understand why Dial ended up developing such a serious personality. Horolian and Basil are still happily married. Pebble. Pebble's parents are Moss and Boulder. Moss is a small rock covered in moss. His tail is made from a smaller stone, giving him a surprisingly adorable appearance. Boulder, meanwhile, fully lives up to his name. He's a massive rock covered in cracks, with sturdy legs, visible fangs, and markings around his eyes that make him look far more intimidating. Despite their difference in size, they make a very unusual pair of dogs. While Moss brings the softer side of the family, Boulder seems to take on the role of protector. Together they create a combination that fits perfectly with Pebble. Astro. Astro's parents are Regolith and Nebulon. Regolith is an asteroid who wears a white lab coat. Her design suggests that she has a strong interest in science and research. On top of that, her expression makes her look like someone with very high standards. On the other hand, we have Nebulon, a massive living nebula. He wears an elegant robe decorated with cosmic patterns and fluffy details. He also shares one of Astro's most distinctive features, 4 arms. Unlike Regolith, Nebulon gives off an aura of calmness and wisdom, as if he always has an answer for everything. Their personalities seem completely opposite, but perhaps that's exactly why they work so well together. They are currently still happily married. Shelley. Her mother is Ami, an ammonite. In other words, one of the species that inspired the fossil Shelley is based on. Her tentacles form a hairstyle-like shape, and she wears a yellow blouse decorated with the image of a fossil. Everything about her design conveys enthusiasm for paleontology and a very friendly personality. Her husband is Dino, and yes, he's literally a dinosaur fossil. We can see all of his exposed bones, along with dark eyes and white pupils that give him a very distinctive appearance. What's especially interesting is that they represent 2 different stages of the same theme, a living species and a prehistoric fossil. That's why this family fits Shelley so perfectly and stands out as one of the most memorable. Ami and Dino remain happily married. V. V's situation is quite different. Her only parent is Dr. Toolsman. In addition to being Delilah's small assistant, Dr. Toolsman is a toolbox equipped with safety goggles, a lab coat, and green gloves. The most interesting part is that he doesn't have a partner. He was able to create V through his inventions and technical knowledge, which perfectly explains V's technological origins. Sprout. Sprout's parents are Chandler and Acne. Chandler is a very friendly strawberry who wears overalls paired with a green plaid shirt. His design gives the impression of someone hardworking, optimistic, and always willing to lend a hand. Acne, on the other hand, has a much more laid-back personality. She wears a green striped scarf and seems like the type of Toon who prefers to take things slow. Even though their energies are very different, they complement each other remarkably well. It's easy to see how Sprout inherited some of Chandler's kindness and some of Acne's calm nature. They are currently still happily married. Out of all the main Toons, my favorite family is Shelly's. The designs of Amy and Dino aren't just original, they also fit perfectly with Shelly's entire prehistoric theme. What about you? Which main Toon family has been your favorite so far? It's time to head one floor higher in the elevator, and this is where the families start getting a little stranger. Scraps and Goob. Scraps and Goob's mother is Yarnsy. She's a handcrafted doll made of yarn, with a button eye, several pins decorating her head, and blue and red hands and feet. Her design resembles a kind of craft project that ends up having far more charm than anyone expected. Her husband is Draco, and you've probably already noticed something interesting. Draco is a wooden craft creation with horns, claws, and a long tail, clearly inspired by a dragon. For a long time, there was a theory that Scraps might have been based on a dragon, although that idea was later debunked. Even so, Blue Buoy decided to pay tribute to the theory by incorporating it into her father's design. Both of them give off a very similar energy to their children. They're creative, expressive, and probably a little absent-minded. Considering Goob's personality, I wouldn't be surprised if more than one conversation in this family ended up drifting completely away from the original topic. They're currently still happily married. Glisten. Now we arrive at one of the most visually striking families. Glisten's mother is Sylvie. Her mirror has a shape that slightly resembles Medusa from Greek mythology, creating a very elegant and distinctive silhouette. She wears a purple blouse along with a long black skirt. Her expression doesn't seem particularly friendly. Instead, she gives the impression of someone demanding, sophisticated, and with very high standards. On the other hand, we have Glitz. Glitz is a drag queen whose mirror forms a long, flowing hairstyle. He wears a bright red dress, long gloves, and numerous decorative details that make him impossible to ignore. Unlike Sylvie, he seems far more sociable and easygoing. The difference in personality might perfectly explain why Glisten ended up developing the personality we know today. Sylvie and Glitz remain happily married. Flutter and Flight. The next couple is Valentine and Clover. Valentine shares several visual traits with Flutter. Her antennae are heart-shaped, and she uses her own wings as a dress decorated with various shades of purple. Her design conveys a sweet personality, though also a somewhat reserved one. She seems like the type of Toon who prefers expressing emotions through small gestures rather than grand displays. Then we have Clover. His green and blue colors immediately bring Flight to mind. The clover-shaped antennae and the design of his wings reinforce the connection even further. Clover seems much more curious and adventurous. He gives the impression of someone who's always looking for something new to explore. Together, they form a very balanced coordination. One brings sensitivity, while the other brings enthusiasm. They are both still happily married. Gigi. Gigi's story is probably one of the most unusual in this entire category of Toons. Her mother is Gacha. As the name suggests, she's inspired by a gachapon machine. One of her eyes is literally the knob used to dispense surprise capsules. Her design reflects confidence and an outgoing personality. She seems like someone who enjoys being the center of attention and keeping things interesting. Her husband is Nicholas, a coin with stars on his cheeks, a gold tooth, and the appearance of someone who's always got a trick up his sleeve. He doesn't seem like a bad person, but he also doesn't seem like someone you trust with your wallet. According to the story behind these designs, the two of them ended up creating Gigi completely by accident. And no, I don't mean that kind of accident. It just happened. The most surprising part is that despite everything, they're still together. Or at least apparently. Blot. Blot's mother is Inklet, an elegant ink bottle with a feather decorating her head. She wears pearls, a white blouse with black accents, and a long dark skirt. Everything about her design radiates refinement and creativity. Her husband is Mimic, and this is where things become far more mysterious. Mimic is made almost entirely of black ink. His body remains hidden beneath a massive gray cloak with a hood, leaving only his eyes visible. His appearance raises a lot of questions. It's possible that he possesses the ability to copy the appearance of other Toons, something that would fit perfectly with his name. While Inklet represents creativity and artistic expression, Mimic seems to embody mystery and the unknown. Two completely opposite concepts that somehow work incredibly well together. And yes, they're happily married too. Out of all the rare Toons, my favorite family is Blots. Inklet and Mimic have designs that immediately stand out from the rest, and the combination of elegance and mystery feels like one of the most original concepts in the entire group. On the next floor, we'll meet families whose designs remain just as interesting. Some of them perfectly explain where the hobbies, quirks, and personalities of their children came from. Uncommon Toons. Finn. His mother is Droplet, a toon made entirely of water. She wears a ponytail, long bangs, and an outfit inspired by nature, complete with leaves decorating her clothing. At first glance, she might seem a little serious, but there's actually a pretty funny reason for that. According to Blue Buoy, Droplet is tired of listening to Finn's father's jokes, and after meeting him, honestly, I can't blame her. Finn's father is Terrence. He's a living terrarium that also serves as the home of Brazil, a small lizard who accompanies him everywhere. He dresses like an explorer and seems to share the same fascination with nature that Finn has with marine life. He absolutely loves puns, probably a little too much. So yes, it's entirely possible that Finn inherited part of his sense of humor directly from him. Droplet and Terrence are still married. Tegan. The next family consists of Latte and Potier. Latte is an elegant coffee cup dressed in a combination of a white shirt, a blazer, and a red skirt. Her expression conveys professionalism and a certain level of distance, as though she's someone who always tries to maintain her composure no matter the situation. On the other hand, we have Potier, a refined teapot with a far more extravagant design. His enormous golden mustache and flashy attire make him stand out immediately among the other toons. Unlike Latte, he seems to enjoy being the center of attention. He has the energy of someone who could turn an ordinary conversation into a full-blown performance. Together they represent two very different forms of elegance. One is more reserved, the other is much more flamboyant. And interestingly enough, both qualities can be seen reflected in Tegan. Roger. Now we arrive at a family that doesn't seem to have had the happiest ending. Roger's mother is Montclair, a living monocle who shares several visual traits with her son, including the noticeable absence of a visible mouth. Her elegant attire and distant expression make her seem reserved, unexpressive, and difficult to get to know at first. His father is Piper. Piper with an enormous mustache and an appearance straight out of a detective novel. He wears a dark trench coat, a tie, and an expression so serious that he probably smiles very rarely. Looking at them together, it's quite obvious where Roger inherited his analytical and formal personality from. However, there's one important detail. Montclair and Piper are no longer together. They're currently separated. And judging by the expressions on both their faces, living together wasn't exactly easy. Toodles. The next family is one of the most unusual. Toodles' mother is Majestia, a magic 8-ball whose answer triangle can be seen through her forehead. Her design incorporates golden details, soft colors, and an aesthetic that makes her look like some sort of fortune teller or mystique. Everything about her radiates calmness and mystery. Her husband is Strike, and he's practically the complete opposite. Strike is a bowling ball covered in dents, cracks, and scars. He wears a bandage across his face, is missing a tooth, and looks like someone who would never back down from a challenge. He also appears to practice boxing, a lot of boxing. His championship belt even suggests that he may have won an important title at some point. While Majestia represents calmness and intuition, Strike represents action and competitiveness. A very unusual combination. But apparently, it works. They're both still happily married. Razzle and Dazzle. The twins' family is probably one of the most artistic in the entire cast. Their mother is Filmine, a film reel who uses part of the reel itself as a scarf. She wears a red beret and clothing that immediately brings someone involved in filmmaking to mind. She could be a director, a producer, or simply a massive movie enthusiast. Whatever the case may be, art is clearly an important part of her life. Her husband is Venetian, an elegant fusion of two different types of theatrical masks. He wears a hat, a red cape, and a black suit that gives him an incredibly sophisticated appearance. Everything about him screams theater, and considering that Razzle and Dazzle are theatrical masks themselves, the connection becomes pretty obvious. Between a passionate movie lover and a devoted theater enthusiast, the twins were practically destined for the stage. And yes, both parents are still happily married. Brightney. Brightney's parents are Lampoline and Edison. Lampoline is a purple gas lamp with a warm and welcoming personality. Her simple design manages to convey a great deal of friendliness, as if she's the type of toon who can make anyone feel comfortable. On the other hand, there's Edison, a living light bulb who wears glasses and an elegant red bow tie. He has a positive energy very similar to Lampoline's, although he seems slightly more expressive and enthusiastic. What's interesting is that they both represent different forms of illumination. One more traditional, the other more modern. And together they ultimately give rise to Brightney. It's not exactly a complicated family. They're happily married. Brusha. The next family has a very different dynamic. Brusha's mother is Palatine, a paint palette with a refined appearance and an expression that seems to constantly evaluate everything she sees. She has the energy of an art critic who never gives an opinion without analyzing every last detail. Her husband is Brusson, a paintbrush covered in colorful paint stains from head to toe. While he doesn't appear particularly expressive either, he gives off a much more relaxed attitude. He seems like the type of person who simply enjoys creating art without worrying too much about what others think. It's easy to imagine the two of them arguing over what does or doesn't qualify as real art. They're currently still married, although to be honest, their expressions don't exactly make them look thrilled about it. Yada. We end this category with a family bursting with color. Yada's mother is Piñarvela, a piñata decorated with the colors of the Mexican flag and dressed in traditional clothing that immediately make her stand out. Her design conveys joy, energy, and a strong connection to her cultural roots. Her father is Cabaziel, a horse-shaped piñata that shares much of Yada's color palette. His expression has a mischievous look that suggests he often gets into trouble or enjoys pulling pranks. Together, they form a vibrant family full of personality, and honestly, they seem like a perfect match for Yada's signature energy. Out of all the uncommon toons, my favorite family is Brightneys. Their designs are relatively simple compared to some of the others, but that's exactly why they work so well. We still have one final floor left to explore. These toons may be considered some of the most common characters in Dandy's world, but that doesn't make their families any less interesting. Several of them help explain some of the most recognizable traits we've been seeing in these toons for a very long time. Common toons. Louis. His mother is Ballinette, a colorful clown-themed ball wearing a birthday hat, a white cape, and plenty of makeup. Everything about her design radiates fun and entertainment. She seems like the kind of toon who could turn an ordinary situation into an impromptu celebration. Her husband is Poppers. Poppers is a dog made entirely of balloons, complete with a massive tail and an appearance that looks like it came straight out of a children's party. Just like Ballinette, he gives off an incredibly cheerful energy. With parents like these, it's pretty obvious where Louis got his enthusiasm from, and Ballinette and Poppers remain happily married. Cosmo. Cosmo's mother is Cosmeria, a cake-like toon decorated with colorful sprinkles and dressed in an elegant pink gown. Her expression makes her seem somewhat shy but also incredibly kind. She appears to be the type of toon who enjoys spending time with others without necessarily becoming the center of attention. On the other hand, we have Rollis, a Swiss roll covered in frosting, freckles, and a striking mustache. His lumberjack-style outfit gives him a much sturdier appearance than Cosmeria. However, beneath that rugged exterior seems to be someone genuinely kind-hearted. The combination works surprisingly well. One brings sweetness, the other brings character. They are currently still happily married. Tisha. Tisha's family is made up of two characters completely centered around cleaning, and honestly, it couldn't have been any other way. Her mother is Towelin, a light blue towel wearing a maid uniform. Her design conveys order, patience, and a very helpful attitude. She seems like the kind of toon who always has everything under control. Tisha's father is Kleenex, a box filled with cleaning supplies that wears a neckerchief and yellow gloves. Although he doesn't appear particularly expressive, he gives off an aura of calmness and responsibility. If someone spills something in this family, the mess would probably disappear before it even hit the floor. Towelin and Kleenex remain happily married. Shrimpo. Now we arrive at a family that seems considerably less stable than the previous ones. Shrimpo's mother is Sushishi, a shrimp sushi wearing a green apron whose expression suggests she's angry at the entire universe. Her personality seems incredibly intense, something that immediately brings Shrimpo himself to mind. His father is Lobs, a massive lobster whose appearance is physically much more intimidating. While he seems to have more patience than Sushishi, he still gives off the impression that making him angry would be a very bad idea. He might be calm, but he definitely doesn't look like someone you'd want to argue with. So it may not be surprising to learn that they are currently divorced. And considering both of their personalities, it was probably a very complicated relationship. Boxton. The next family is one of the most heavily connected to music and the performing arts. Boxton's mother is Natalia, a musical note dressed in ballet attire and wearing an elegant decorative headband. Everything about her reflects discipline, practice, and artistic dedication. She gives the impression of someone who has spent countless hours perfecting every movement. Her husband is Boxendale, a cardboard box with a drawn-on mustache who wears an elegant black suit and a bow tie. He also carries a conductor's baton in one of his hands, which suggests he may be an orchestra conductor. Unlike Natalia, he seems far more expressive and enthusiastic. Together they form a family completely devoted to music. They currently remain happily married. Poppy. Poppy's mother is Wanda, a bubble wand who shares her daughter's enormous pink bow. Her clothing is filled with bubble-inspired details, further reinforcing her connection to Poppy. Her design radiates optimism, energy, and fun. She seems like the kind of Toon who can find something positive even in the worst situations. Her father is Sudsley, a soap dispenser who wears glasses, a red shirt, and gray pants. Unlike Wanda, he seems much calmer and more thoughtful. He gives the impression of being the voice of reason within the family. Wanda and Sudsley remain happily married. The parents of these Toons reflect many of the interests, habits, and personality traits we've come to recognize in these children. So which family did you relate to the most? My family is actually very similar to...